Good evening and welcome. Tonight we are going to flip through this book about China. We're going to look at all the pictures and read all the little boxes. And there's a lot of little boxes in this book, so let's get right into it. China, look at these cutes. So sweet. We got even more sweet tiny faces here, so cute. We have some beautiful mountains here rising up over this landscape. And we have a bunch of, looks like, tourists maybe visiting the site. And they're chopping up some timber there. Isn't this beautiful? Some of the big stone, just, I don't know what to call them. They call them mountains, but they don't quite look like mountains, do they? It's the inspiration for the movie Avatar when they're flying around. We have the Gobi Desert here. This is near the Mogao Caves. There's the Yellow River, and we have our first box here for the Grand Canal. It says, the Grand Canal is the oldest and longest man-made canal in China. The earliest parts were dug in the 5th century BCE. This 1,105-mile canal was an immense project in terms of labor and lives lost. During the Sui dynasty, the then capital of Luoyang was linked to the old capital of Xi'an. With the recorded labor of 5 million men and women under the supervision of overseer Ma Shumo, the first major section of the Grand Canal, called the Bianku, was completed in the year 605. The second stage of the Grand Canal was completed under the second Sui emperor in 609, first by linking Luoyang to the city of Yangzhou and the Yangtze Valley, then by expanding it to Hangzhou in the south and Beijing in the north. After the canal's completion, Emperor Yang led a recorded 65-mile-long naval flotilla from the north down to his southern capital at Yangzhou. The main function of the canal was to move troops in times of war, but it was also used for the transportation of food from the fertile south to the barren north. This gradually made the south the agricultural center of China. In addition to its function as a grain shipment route and major vein of river-borne indigenous trade in China, the Grand Canal had long been a government-operated courier route. During the Ming Dynasty, official courier stations were placed at intervals of 21.7 miles to 28 miles. The Grand Canal connects 4 major rivers, the Huanghe, the Yangtze, the Huai, and the Qiantang. It passes through some of the prettiest parts of China. Much of the canal has fallen into disuse due to the construction of road and railway links and the repeated flooding of the Huanghe. The Grand Canal nominally runs between Beijing and Hangzhou over a length of 1,115 miles. However, only the section from Hangzhou to Jining is currently navigable, mainly for the transportation of agricultural products and raw materials to factories and warehouses. It is also used to irrigate the drought-prone areas of Hubei, Hainan, and Anhui provinces. The economic importance of the canal will likely increase because the governments of Shandong, Jiangsu, and Zhejiang provinces have implemented a dredging program that should increase shipping capacity by 40% in 2012. That tells you how old this book is. It's a little bit over 10 years old. Also, apologies for any mispronunciations. I'm doing my best here. Oh, there's more. The Grand Canal continued. The Grand Canal is currently being upgraded to serve as the eastern route of the South-North Water Transfer Project. Construction on the eastern route officially began on December 27, 2002, and water was supposed to reach Tianjin by 2012. However, water pollution has affected the viability of this project. There's Beijing. I bet it looks different now. I don't know. I feel like that's a really old picture. Here's another box about the Forbidden City. This famous complex of buildings in Beijing is called the Forbidden City because at one time only the emperor and his court could live there. This cluster of imperial palaces was built in 1406 to 1420 during the Ming Dynasty. It is surrounded by a wide moat and a high wall. There are 9,999 rooms. If a newborn prince lived in a different room every day of his life, he would be 27 years old by the time he had slept in them all. The area around the Forbidden City is equally interesting. Still standing are medieval buildings that once held businesses catering to the needs of the people in nearby palaces. In fact, the Imperial Pharmacy is still in business and dispenses the same kinds of pills and potions that used to cure princes. The royal shoe shop is not far off. That's really interesting. Here's another box about the giant panda. The giant panda, China's favorite animal, is threatened with extinction. Pandas live on a diet of only bamboo leaves. With urbanization, more bamboo plants are being destroyed, forcing the pandas to go higher up into the mountains in search of food. Unfortunately, many pandas die of starvation due to the shrinking bamboo forests. The average giant panda eats as much as 20 to 30 pounds of bamboo shoots a day. Initially, the primary method of breeding giant pandas in captivity was by artificial insemination, as they seemed to lose their interest in mating once they were captured. This led to some scientists to try extreme methods, such as showing them videos of giant pandas mating and giving the males Viagra. Interesting. Here's the history section. You see the Great Wall winding here. If you want to hear me softly reading the history chapter, only my channel members get to hear that. You can click the join button below or click the link in the description box to join. It's only 99 US cents a month and you get to hear me do a lot of reading and stuff. The Terracotta Warriors here, very, very famous. Let's read about the Great Wall. The Great Wall, symbol of China's ancient civilization, stretches for 5,500 miles across northern China. Its construction started during the spring and autumn period. Rival feudal kingdoms built walls around their territories to keep out invading nomadic tribes from the north. When Qin Shi Huang unified China, he began to link up and extend these walls. Prisoners of war, convicts, soldiers, civilians, and farmers labored to build the Great Wall. Millions died of starvation, disease, and exhaustion during the construction. Their bodies were buried in the foundations or used as part of the wall. Ooh, that's horrible. Any materials found nearby, clay, stone, willow branches, reeds, and sand, were used. The Great Wall crosses Loess plateaus, mountains, deserts, rivers, and valleys, passing through 5 provinces and 2 autonomous regions. It is about 20 feet wide and 26 feet high. Parts of the wall are so broad that 10 soldiers can walk abreast. parts of the old wall can still be seen in remote parts of China. Most visitors see the portions that were restored during the Ming Dynasty, when stone slabs replaced clay bricks. The wall took 100 years to rebuild, and it is said that the amount of material used in the present wall alone is enough to circle the world at the equator 5 times. Contrary to popular belief, astronauts cannot see the Great Wall of China from the moon. The apparent width of the Great Wall from the moon is the same as that of a human hair viewed from 2 miles away. That puts things into perspective. Here's another box about the Silk Road. The ancient Silk Road was established some 2,000 years ago. Starting at Chang'an, the ancient capital, which is present-day Xi'an, it stretched westward for 4,350 miles, crossing mountains and deserts all the way to the eastern coast of the Mediterranean. From there, trade goods were taken to Constantinople, which is present-day Istanbul, and Rome. Chinese silk and other Chinese inventions such as paper, printing from wood blocks, gunpowder, and the compass made their way to East Asia, the Middle East, and Europe along this route. In turn, merchants introduced foreign religions, art, and cultures to China. They also brought agricultural products, and the Chinese soon began eating grapes, walnuts, cucumbers, broad beans, and watermelon. Silk was also exchanged for Persian horses, glass, perfume, and ivory. Merchants traveled the Silk Road on camels. Chosen because of their docile temper and their endurance of the sun and sand, these animals carried enormous loads across mountains and deserts. But few people traveled the entire span of the road. Goods were passed from one middleman to another along the route. Later, with the loss of Roman territory in Asia, the Silk Road became overrun by bandits, and few people traveled it. In the 13th and 14th centuries, the Mongol rulers of China revived the use of the road by which Marco Polo, the Italian merchant adventurer, arrived in Mongol-ruled China. Next, I have a huge box for you. It takes up almost 2 pages. The 4 Great Inventions of Ancient China. Many things that we take for granted in everyday life were invented in China. For example, the umbrella, eyeglasses, paper money, the kite, the mechanical clock, and even the washboard made their way to the West after being developed in China. The 4 most important inventions from ancient China were paper, printing, gunpowder, and the compass. First, we have paper. Paper is believed to have been invented by Cailun or Cailun around the year 105. Before paper was invented, the Chinese carved characters on bone and tortoiseshell. Later, the first book was bound using strips of bamboo held together with string. People then started writing on silk, which proved too expensive. A nice figure, very hard to do. Paper first made its appearance during the Han Dynasty. Bark, bits of hemp, cloth, and old fishing nets were boiled to a pulp. This pulp was rinsed, pounded flat, and spread out on fine bamboo screens to form sheets of paper. Next is printing. At first, each printing block contained an entire page of text, so each block could only be used to produce that same page of a book. During the Song Dynasty, single characters were engraved on individual blocks of wood. Each block could then be used repeatedly. Assembled to form sentences and pages, they were inked, and moistened paper was placed over them. Gunpowder. During the period of the Warring States, Alchemists trying to make immortality pills discovered that a mixture of sulfur and saltpeter caused an explosion when heated. At first, the new discovery was used for firecrackers. Later, gunpowder was used in war for the first time during the Tang Dynasty. Firecrackers are still lit in China during Chinese New Year. And the compass. The compass was first used more than 2,000 years ago when the Chinese discovered that a piece of natural magnetite would automatically point in a north-south direction. The Chinese soon started to fashion magnets of ingenious design. One was of a wooden figure on a horse-drawn chariot, and no matter which direction the chariot turned, the figure would always be pointing north. Compasses became common as navigational devices on ships between 850 and 1050. Let's see, we've got some pretty cliffs here, but the lake says it was man-made during the Qing Dynasty. There's Sun Yat-sen, who founded the Kuomintang, which is basically the government that's now in Taiwan, the foundations of that government. And there's Mao Zedong, who founded the People's Republic of China. There's the Great Hall of the People in Tiananmen Square, it says. I assume the main government building. Let's read about administrative divisions. China's divided into 23 provinces, 5 autonomous regions, 4 municipalities, and 2 SARs. I hope it tells us what that means. Each province is divided into cities, counties, and towns. Administrative units at the lowest level are the residences committees. They manage public welfare, settle disputes, see to public security, and ensure that state rules are implemented and observed. They also adopt, issue, and decide on plans for the economic and social welfare of their districts. China's 5 autonomous regions are Guangxi,内蒙古or Inner Mongolia, Ningxia, Xinjiang Uyghur, and Xizang, which we call Tibet. These areas have large communities of minority nationalities. Local people's congresses and governments are set up to exercise the right of limited self-government. The 4 municipalities, Beijing, Shanghai, Tianjin, and Chongqing, report directly to the central government. What's an SAR? I assume ours region. Semi-autonomous region. Got it. Let's see. This is canola, it says. Wow. That's what we, when I worked in the movie theater, we'd put canola oil on popcorn instead of butter. Just so you know. Never actually used butter. Let's see, a clothing factory here, it says. I'm not sure what I'm looking at. I assume these are swaths of cloth, maybe. All tied up together. It's interesting. A rice paddy. That's how rice is grown. And some, what are these called? Like robot arms that they used to make cars. My stomach's growling. Oh well. Special economic zones. As part of its economic reforms and policy of opening to the world, between 1980 and 1984, China established SEZs in Shantou, Shenzhen, and Zhuhai in Guangdong Province, and Xiamen in Fujian Province. It also designated the entire island province of Hainan an SEZ. Since then, 15 free trade zones, 32 state-level economic and technological development zones, and 53 new and high-tech industrial development zones have been established in large and mid-size cities. The economic characteristics of SEZs are: construction relies primarily on attracting and using foreign capital. Most enterprises are Sino-foreign joint ventures and partnerships, as well as wholly foreign-owned enterprises. Products are primarily export-oriented. Economic activities are driven primarily by market forces. The SEZs are listed separately in national planning, including financial planning, and have province-level authority on economic administration. The local Congress and government of the SEZs have legislation authority. I feel like I just read terms of conditions, fine print. Goodness. Look how beautiful. It's called Five Color Lake, and you can see why. That is a stunning color. It's like jewel-toned water. There's pollution, which of course it's way worse since this book came out. We've got some grass they're planting in the desert to slow down desertification. And a garbage collector here. Very unglamorous job. Here's a huge box here about the Three Gorges Dam. The Three Gorges Dam is the world's largest power station in terms of installed capacity. The dam body was completed in 2006. The cost of construction of the dam was $24 billion. The Three Gorges Dam reached its design maximum reservoir water level of 574 feet for the first time on October 26, 2010, and during that year, its intended annual power generation capacity of 847 megawatts was realized. At full power, Three Gorges reduces coal consumption by 31 million tons per year, saving millions of pollutants from being released into the atmosphere every year. Hydropower also reduces the energy needed to mine, wash, and transport coal from northern China. The dam increased the Yangtze's barge capacity sixfold and reduced carbon dioxide emission by 630,000 tons annually. Wow. From 2004 to 2007, 198 million tons of goods passed through the ship locks. Compared with using trucks, the barges reduced carbon dioxide emissions by 10 million tons and lowered costs by 25%. Shipping also became safer since the gorges were notoriously dangerous to navigate. An important function of the dam is to control flooding, which is a major problem for the seasonal river of the Yangtze. Millions of people live downstream of the dam, with many large important cities such as Wuhan, Nanjing, and Shanghai situated adjacent to the river. Plenty of farmland and China's most important industrial areas are built beside the river. The dam alleviated the impact of potentially disastrous floods in 2009 and 2010. The dam discharges its reservoir during the dry season between December and March every year. This increases the flow rate of the river downstream and provides fresh water for agricultural and industrial usage. It also improves shipping conditions. The water level upstream drops from 574 feet to 476 feet, preparing for the rainy season. The water also powers the Genjoba Dam downstream. Since the filling of the reservoir in 2003, the Three Gorges Dam has supplied an extra 2.63 cubic miles of fresh water to downstream cities and farms during the dry season. China also has a huge reforestation effort in the Yangtze Basin, which accelerated after terrible floods in 1998, convinced the government that it must restore tree cover upstream of the Three Gorges Dam. One significant drawback is that the 373-mile-long reservoir flooded some 1,300 archaeological sites and altered the appearance of the Three Gorges as the water level rose more than 590 feet. Cultural and historical relics were moved to higher ground as they were discovered, but the flooding inevitably covered undiscovered relics. Some sites could not be moved because of their location, size, or design. For example, the Shennong Gorge hanging coffins are part of the cliffs, and some of them are now submerged. That's too bad. Let's see what's next. Some Miao people, which have these incredible hairstyles, which, if you know Star Wars, you know what character these were inspired by. A Kazakh man there, the east, and some Tibetans in Tibet. And a Uyghur girl. Many minorities in what's now China. The overseas Chinese. That rhymes. Poverty, wars, and rebellions forced many Chinese to leave their country in search of a better life. Most left from provinces in southern China, such as Guangdong, Fujian, and Shanghai. Some left for countries in nearby Southeast Asia, such as Thailand, Malaysia, Singapore, and Indonesia. Others went as far away as Europe, Africa, the Caribbean, South America, Australia, Canada, and the United States. Where in the 19th century, many settled in California to dig for gold or build railways. There's lots of really interesting little Chinese towns in the Central Valley of California. They're really interesting. Overseas, Chinese, or Huaqiao, practice their own customs and traditions, some of which are not practiced by mainland Chinese. Although China is opening up, it still does not allow the free practice of certain customs and traditions. The Huaqiao community is large, numbering about 40 million. Many who made a better living overseas sent for their relatives. This is why we find large groups from a particular province in one area. California, for example, has a large Cantonese community, and Brazil has many Chinese from Fujian province. The wish of some Huaqiao is to go back to their hometown. Many who have made good have returned to rebuild their ancestral home or make donations to build schools, hospitals, and public buildings in their villages or provinces. If you remember when I lived in California, my sweet landlady was from China. She told some really interesting stories about how she experienced the Cultural Revolution. It was a heavy story, but anyway. This picture is a little family here. The caption's talking about the one-child policy. Big, busy day. See a McDonald's there. The little soft serve. I wonder if the soft serve machines in China work better than the ones in America. Having a big meal together. Yum, yum, yum. And a baby. Look at that sweet face with grandma right there. That is so cute. And they're working hard in school. Let's read about women in China. The women of ancient China were essentially homebound and their social behavior highly controlled. Upper-class girls had their feet bound when they were between 4 and 8 years old to stop their feet from growing. This painful process, which was considered a beauty treatment, left them with small, misshapen, club-like feet as they grew older. With only tiny feet supporting their weight, they could just manage several small steps at a time. Still, their gait, like a swaying willow tree, was considered attractive and kept them from venturing too far from home. The practice continued until well into the 20th century. After China became a republic, the status of Chinese women was officially equal to that of men. Since 1949, the government of the People's Republic of China has actively promoted the social, economic, and political roles of women in society. These efforts met with some resistance in a traditionally Neo-Confucian society of male superiority. Nonetheless, women played a big part in rebuilding China. Most took on jobs once held only by men, such as doctors, engineers, factory workers, soldiers, and even those involving manual labor, such as farmers and porters. Women are now an important part of the workforce. They have equal pay to men and carry the same workload. At the same time, many Chinese men share responsibilities for their children and do household chores such as cooking, cleaning, and ironing. Women are well represented in the government and hold key positions in large organizations. It is felt that if anyone can do a job, that person should be given the responsibility, regardless of gender. Awesome. And there's another cute baby. There's a couple getting their wedding photos taken. How nice. And visiting a grave of a loved one. There's some monks here looking very somber. This guy's writing some important stuff. He says he's a Taoist priest and praying at the mosque. It's the religion chapter, obviously. Let's read about wind and water. Lift it up. There we go. Feng Shui, which literally means wind and water, is the practice of living in harmony with the natural environment for good fortune and health. It was first practiced in ancient China by farmers to whom wind and water were very important natural forces that could either destroy or nurture their crops. Today, Feng Shui has developed into the art of placing and creating buildings and other man-made structures, such as fountains and bridges, so that they harmonize with and benefit from the surrounding physical environment. The Chinese believe that there are invisible forces beneath the earth, positive yang and negative yin. A compass called a wopan measures these forces. Balancing the two forces in a person's immediate surrounding is important for good health and fortune. For example, warm colors representing the positive force in a room should be balanced by cool colors representing the negative force. A building should ideally be situated with a hill protecting the back and calm water in front for a soothing view. A huge tree that shadows the main entrance could prevent fortune from entering, while a swift flowing drain or river nearby could carry all the luck away. Doors are sometimes built at an angle to prevent bad luck from entering, and mirrors are hung above doors or windows to scare away evil spirits with their own reflections. I think feng shui is really interesting. Do I believe it 100%? Not really, but I like the idea of placing things just so in your home. There's like rules to where things have to go. The language chapter showing some Chinese characters here. And they're chatting there at the little corner shop. Playing some card games. I was about to say mahjong, but that's not mahjong. That's interesting. Little cards. Working hard in school. Let's read about bone inscriptions. In 1899, a Qing dynasty court official fell ill and sent for medicine. Bone fossils were prescribed as medication. When this was brought to him, he noticed that the bones were engraved with Chinese characters. He quickly ordered all the bones from the pharmacy to be brought to him. It was discovered that these bones, found by farmers and sold as medicine, dated as far back as the 16th century BCE. Holy moly, more than 1,500 words were recognized. The bone inscriptions were vitally important in tracing the evolution of the Chinese script. They explained, for example, why the character for sun, formerly written as a dot within a circle, evolved into a square. It was because of the shape of the bones and the simple carving tools used to inscribe words. How interesting is that? My goodness. And she's writing there with a brush. Have you guys seen Ting Ting ASMR's videos where she would write with the brush? I love those videos. Part of me doesn't like them because I want to watch, but I also start falling asleep and I'm like fighting to stay awake to watch her brush the characters. I love those videos. It's an ethnic bi woman, it says here, working on some embroidery. Look at these beautiful, I wonder if they're rugs or something behind her. It's a beautiful color. And she's making some art. Here it says cloisonné. I'm not sure what that is, but it's pretty. And there's an opera performance there. That's neat. Let's read about the Monkey King. You know the story if you know Dragon Ball. It's based off of this story. The Monkey King, or Sun Wukong, is probably the best known character in Chinese opera. There are between 500 and 600 operas that revolve around his adventures and antics. Most of these stories are based on the novel Journey to the West, written by Wu Cheng'en in the 16th century. Sun Wukong, a celestial being, accompanies his master, a Buddhist monk, to India in search of religious scriptures. Along the way, he endures all kinds of dangers and hardships and protects his master from demons and evil beings. Totally devoted to his master, he's a clever, cunning, and disobedient character with a good heart. His monkey-like antics and mischief amuse audiences of all ages. Most operas about Sun Wukong are filled with acrobatics. Somersaults, tumbles, and falls make up most of these spectacular fighting scenes. Actors who play the Monkey King spend their whole careers perfecting the art and are able to imitate the actions and characteristics of the monkey. Before I read that box, there's some headdresses here. So pretty. It says they're used for opera. Let's read about acrobatics. This performing art is 22 centuries old in China. It started out as a means of livelihood for farmers during the winter months, and developed into one of the most popular forms of entertainment in China and abroad. Props used are often household items such as dishes and furniture. These objects are often tossed in the air or piled precariously one on top of another. Balancing acts on bicycles, piles of chairs, or large urns are common, and so are contortionist acts. Acrobatic acts often include performing animals. Acrobats are so popular that there are acrobatic troupes that represent towns and large associations. There are currently more than 120 acrobatic troupes at county level and above, involving more than 12,000 performers. In the past 40 years, many Chinese acrobatic troupes have toured more than 100 countries to promote friendship and cultural exchanges. Quick story. The apartment buildings that one of my aunts lived in back in California and San Francisco, there were so many Chinese acrobats that lived in that building, and there was a pool, and one summer we went swimming, and all the acrobats came out and they were doing all kinds of flips and stuff into the water. I'm just sitting there like a little kid, stunned at like how they were able to like flip into the water. It was so cool. It was a fun time. A traditional instrument here, guqing, I think it's called, it says. And some pretty folded paper there. Doing some Taiichi, which is, I've tried it a couple times. There's different types of Taiichi. It's either really relaxing or really strenuous, depending on which one you do. And they're dancing here. Look at that. How sweet. The temple, it says. And playing jump rope. That takes so much skill. Let's read about the storyteller. Chinese storytellers perform to audiences of all ages. They entertain with epics, classics, martial arts stories, and contemporary stories. The props, if any, are simple. a fan, a table, a chair. The storyteller makes a wide sweep with a fan and tells of soldiers thundering across the desert. The fan may also be a coy lady's accessory, or it could be slapped against the body to show the tyranny of an emperor. The table likewise could become the front of a bus, a magistrate's table, a counter in a department store, or a hospital bed. The magic lies in the storyteller's skill. They change not only the tone of their voice to assume a different character, but their expressions and behavior as well. The beauty of it all is the audience never mixes up the characters or train of events. This profession started out with itinerant storytellers who moved from village to village providing entertainment. Some would light a joss stick and time the story so that the most exciting part ended when the joss stick finished. A hat was passed around and the story would continue. Audiences laughed, cried, and trembled in fear with the storyteller. Many variety shows on stage and on television now include a storyteller. Another form of entertainment has evolved from this, called crosstalk. It involves two or more performers playing out a comic script like stand-up comics of the West. It's fun. Well, doing some, what's it called? Taiichi Quan, it says. Looks like Tai Chi with swords. That's fun. And ping pong is a huge deal in China. It's their national sport. But let's read about board games. In a city park or a quiet village square in the evening, men seated on low stools concentrate over a chessboard. They are playing elephant chess or wei qi, both strategy board games. Elephant chess or xiangqi has been around since the year 700. Chess pieces include cannons, elephants, cavalry, infantry, and chariots, with a fortress in which the king and his counselors are entrenched. The two halves of the chessboard are separated by the Yellow River. The objective is to storm the enemy's fortress and capture the king, who never leaves the fortress. Chessmen travel along lines like in Wei Qi. Wei Qi or Go is the oldest board game in China, having been around for thousands of years. Wei means to surround and Qi means board game. It is played on a grid board marked with 19 vertical and 19 horizontal lines, using 181 black and 180 white flat round counters. Players mark out their own territories and then try to capture each other's men and territory. Single or whole groups of men can be captured and removed from the board. The winner is the one who has gained the most territory and men. Wei Qi is considered the most complicated board game in the world because of the high number of possible moves. Thanks in large part to substantial government support, China is a major chess power with 30 grandmasters and 21 women grandmasters in total. I'm sure it's higher now. Grandmaster is the highest title a chess player can attain, and it is awarded by the World Chess Federation. Currently, 5 of the world's top 100 players, including the reigning women's world chess champion Hao Yifan, are from China. Mahjong is a game that originated in China, commonly played by 4 players, with some 3-player variations found in Korea and Japan. Similar to the Western card game Rummy, Mahjong is a game of skill, strategy, and calculation, and involves a certain degree of chance. In Asia, Mahjong is also popularly played as a gambling game. The game is played with a set of 136 tiles based on Chinese characters and symbols, although some regional variations use a different number of tiles. It remains far more popular in Asia than in the West. Some beautiful red lanterns here for the new year. Some dancers all dressed up. Very neat. and dragon boat racing. And, oh wow, it says these people, the Dai people of Yunnan, splash water on each other in the new year. That's fun. Food, lots of veggies here. And there's a box here about rice. Rice is so important to the Chinese that fun, meaning rice, refers to a whole meal. Many Chinese sayings revolve around rice. The breadwinner is one who puts rice on the table, whereas to break someone's rice bowl means to make another lose his or her job. If a Chinese asks you to come and eat rice, they're inviting you to a meal. Rice is treated with utmost respect. Every spilled grain is picked up, washed, and cooked. Parents persuade their children to eat up every grain of rice in their bowl by telling them that a bowl dotted with rice grains means they'll marry someone with pock-marked skin. Fun is eaten with chai, a general term for dishes that accompany rice. An unusual rice recipe is exploded rice. Uncooked rice is put into a drum that is heated over charcoal to a high temperature. It is rotated, and when a certain amount of pressure is reached, a valve is released, and with a bang, the rice grains spill out into a waiting bag. The grains look and taste like Rice Krispies and are eaten as a snack or pressed together with sweet syrup to make a cookie. Yum yum. Let's read about chopsticks. Chinese started eating with chopsticks 3,000 years ago. They were probably invented to pick up bite-sized pieces of food. Soldiers going to war had a special kit consisting of a cutting knife and a pair of chopsticks. Regular chopsticks are tapered, slim objects with a blunt end. They're about 8 inches long, though those used for cooking may be 2 feet long. Chopsticks are usually made of wood, bamboo, or plastic. The more elaborate ones have cloisonné designs, there's that word again, or are made of ivory or jade. Emperors ate with silver chopsticks that they believed would turn black if the food was poisoned. Chinese use chopsticks to eat everything except soup. They use chopsticks to push rice from the bowl into the mouth, to pick up portions of food, and even to eat cake. Children start using chopsticks as soon as they can hold a pair and coordinate their movements. There's no rule as to how they should be used, except that they should never cross. Out at the tea house there it says. Making some noodles there. It says lo mein noodles. Cooking in the kitchen. And pouring some tea. Very important. Your tea ceremonies. We've got a recipe here for Peking duck and braised chicken, which looks pretty good. And we have a big old map of China here. And you can see where China is located in the world. And that's going to be it for tonight. Thank you so much for watching. If you enjoy this style of video, please consider subscribing. And I hope that you have a good night. Good night. Good night, my star.